I thank the gentleman from New Jersey. You know, when the chairman of the full committee wanted me to chair this subcommittee, I initially rejected that notion. I'm not an attorney, but he pointed out to me, not only did we have jurisdiction over antitrust, we had jurisdiction over administrative law. And I said, well, heck, that's 90% of government. I'll do it. And so that's why I agreed to chair that, and that's why we're having this hearing today. There's so much of government that happens in these administrative agencies. One of the notions that came up today was that congressmen don't possess the knowledge or the expertise to be making these decisions about what rules our constituents should live under, that we should defer to experts in these agencies. Professor Mascott, isn't it true in Article III courts? I mean, these courts decide whether somebody's going to go to prison for life, okay? And they use DNA, for instance, as evidence. Isn't it true that a judge doesn't need to be an expert in the topic and that they can call expert witnesses in Article III courts?
It's absolutely the case that Article III judges are more experts in the law and not necessarily the facts of the cases that come before them. And also we look to the institution of the jury as a piece of the democratic power in our system to be able to adjudicate factual innocence and guilt in the criminal context. And so it's certainly possible to craft a system where we don't have subject matter experts making the final determinations. The one other point is, you know, the unique function of Congress is that you all, each of you, are electorally responsive in this body on every 2 years to the interests of the American people, and that's not happening in the executive branch. There's one president at the top who represents the whole country, but the agencies are often insulated from presidential supervision, and they're not elected. And if they are making the policy decisions, the interests of the American people cannot possibly be represented purely by them. And just one final point, if I may.
Well, let me comment on that. Doesn't that mean that elections don't matter? If we have people in a branch of government that is elected, right? It's not the judicial branch, which the founders recognized we needed to have life terms and independence, but in the branch that's elected, if we wall off part of that branch and insulate them from elections, isn't that a bad thing?
Absolutely, the policy decisions need to be made here in the elected body. That's how the Constitution was designed, and you're exactly right. When it's shunted over to agencies, we lose the entire electoral foundation of our federal system.
Mr. Chenoweth, I think you have an interesting perspective, having worked for a congressperson and then working where you do now and in the other roles. What would you say to the notion that congressmen and women don't possess the knowledge to be making these laws that their constituents should live under?
I certainly don't think that was Congressman Pompeo's point of view. I think that he thought he was plenty smart enough to be making these rules. But I also think that, you know, my experience, I have a lot more faith in Congress than apparently some of the members who spoke today. Congress does craft very detailed legislation sometimes. It'll craft the Internal Revenue Code, criminal laws, tariff schedule exemptions. Some of the things that I remember getting lobbied on Capitol Hill about certain Medicare, Medicaid payments to rural hospitals, things like that. I mean, these things can get extraordinarily detailed. All of those things are voted on by Congress. Mr. Van Drew mentioned the REINS Act. You know, I think there's a simplified version of that. From the rulemaking side, if Congress is concerned about having the expertise to delve in and figure out exactly how to craft the regulations, then fine, keep it somewhat the way it is, but tell these agencies, your rules do not go into effect until we vote them up or down. Make it like a base realignment commission situation. Start with the rules that are $100 million or more. And if the agency has a rule like that, then it needs to propose it to Congress, and it doesn't go into effect until Congress votes it up or down. If you were to do that, I guarantee you that the rules coming out of the agencies would be 10 times better than they are right now, because they wouldn't try to get away with the garbage that they're getting away with now if they knew that it had to go in front of Congress to get approved before it went into effect.
In my last few seconds, I've got another question for you. You know, in a democracy, and where we're allowing the administrative branch to adjudicate certain things, what practical purpose does a gag order serve? I mean, how does that make our country function better?
I don't think it does make our country better. I mean, more speech, better speech, free speech is the way that we need to be thinking about this in our country. And these gag orders are really just self-protection mechanisms on the part of the agency, and they need to go away.
My time's expired, and I want to thank the witnesses for coming here today. Appreciate all four of you and what you've added to this discussion and illuminated things that, you know, today we claimed that the American people don't know about. Well, they should know about it, and that's why we had this hearing. And so I appreciate the expertise that you bring to it. I want to thank my ranking member, Mr. Correa from California. And that concludes today's hearing. We thank you witnesses for appearing before the committee today. And without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witnesses or additional materials for the record. Without objection, this hearing is adjourned.